and .45 caliber pistols. He was riding home on his motorcycle when shot several times by men believed to be elements of the military. The doctor was an activist during the Marcos dictatorship and provincial chairperson of Bayan Munang Party List Chapter and convener of the farmers' organization, Pesante Northern Samar. Dato Mampaaki Delayon was with his family when he was shot dead by elements of Task Force Dantangan, Bagani Force, on September 2 in Esperanza, Agusan del Sur. Task Force Dantangan is like a paramilitary organization created by the Philippine Army. On September 28, another tribal leader of the Banwaon tribe, Aladino Dato Mansubaybay Bagbaran, was shot and killed by an unidentified men believed to be members of the Citizens Armed Forces Geographical Unit or CAF group under the 23rd Trader Battalion. He died from gunshot wounds in his right eyeball, skull, and genitals. They are leaders of Lumad organizations fighting for the protection of their ancestral lands from incursions of large-scale mining owned by local and foreign corporations. Oplan Bantaylaya also targets whole communities. Military operations of the 58th Infantry Battalion of the Philippine Army just before the harvest season in June to July of this year caused the evacuation of 300 families composed of 1,795 individuals, most of them from the indigenous group Manobo in Lianga, Surigao del Sur. Also, the military operations in Carigara, Leyte, affected 2,524 individuals, composing 421 families. In the first week of April, the 19th Infantry Battalion of the Philippine Army occupied 3 villages and made the barangay halls their headquarters. The military imposed curfew and prevented villagers from leaving their homes to tend their farms, which were some distance from the village. On August 10, the villagers were evacuated to the barangay center and forced restrictions were imposed as part of military operations in Matanao, Davao del Sur. A total of 72 households involving 462 individuals were affected. Each household was allowed only 4 kilos of rice or corn to bring to their farm. It is the military's claim that when residents transport big amounts of food rations, part of it must be for the MTA units in the area and should therefore be confiscated. And then we have clearing operations for RCUS Balikatan in Sorsogon. This is in Igor. In Sorsogon, the much-flaunted humanitarian mission by American troops resulted in death benefits but more damage to village residents as the Philippine Army conducted so-called clearing operations months before the U.S. troops arrived in April. Also in the town of Aroroy in Masbate, Noel Encinares, Fort 1 and Noel Gumba were shot on March 12 and 19 respectively by suspected military men in the wake of clearing operations for the Balikatan exercises. We have also noted the trend of heightened attacks against the human rights defenders, and these are the graphs that we had. So you can see the extrajudicial killings there, and women human rights defenders, we have already 51 killed, and 11 enforced disappearance, and 98 illegally arrested women human rights defenders. We also have among our workers from Karapatan, from 2001 up to this year, we have 34 of our colleagues killed in the so-called line of work, the line of duty. We have also documented 1,946 arrests since 2001. And for political prisoners, we have presently 284 political prisoners all across the country, with 28 women and 6 minors. Out of the 284 political prisoners, 255 were arrested during the administration of Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. In conclusion, while hiding under the cloak of democratic rule, the US-backed Arroyo regime is trying to silence her most vocal critics and political opponents with the use of Oplan Bansaylaya 1 and 2. OBL erases the line that differentiates the unarmed protest movement from the armed resistance movement. Quoting the report of the UN Human Rights Council in April 2009 by Special Rapporteur Philip Alston, we quote, however, the AFP or the Armed Forces of the Philippines has not, to the Special Rapporteur's knowledge, changed its counterinsurgency business in such a way as to eliminate the likelihood that leftist activists will be killed, and moreover, forced disappearances and illegal detentions remain all too common, as does the bringing of trumped-up charges against Filipino activists and human rights abuse victims. Whatever may have been conveyed in private, the Special Rapporteur is not aware of any public statement by the President instructing the security forces to stop the targeting and public labeling of political and civil society organizations as fronts for New People's Army operations. While some public statements have been made, the Special Rapporteur has not received evidence of any institutional reforms by the government designed to prevent the targeting and execution of civil society activists. Deeper reforms thus remain essential in order to pull back the curtain of impunity that has existed for many years and to prevent a return to those policies. The human rights situation in the Philippines in 2009 proves that Oplan Bansaylaya is a national policy that unleashes state terrorism on the Filipino people. The year 2009 further proves that President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, knowingly and willfully leads the implementation of Oplan Bansaylaya and has repeatedly exhorted the military and related government agencies to meet the brutish targets for 2010, despite the loss of life, liberty, and security of the victims of Oplan Bansaylaya. In closing, we quote from Professor Jose Maria Sison's The Structure of Reactionary Violence and Human Rights Violations in the Philippines. The structure of reactionary violence and human rights violations in the Philippines has several levels, including those of the US, the puppet Manila-based government, and the local tyrants like the Ampatuans. The U.S. has been the most culpable for whipping up state terrorism and vigilantism by local tyrants and by army and police commanders under the pretext of combating communists and Muslims who are unjustly labeled as terrorists. The U.S. is the imperialist master that has dictated upon the Arroyo regime to adopt and implement Oplan Bansaylaya and use the regular armed forces, the police and the paramilitary forces of the Ampatuan type to suppress national and democratic rights of the people. Along the way, the puppets use their armed power to intimidate and kill their intersystemic political rivals. The U.S. has provided the doctrine of warfare against the people and supplied the military equipment and training and other wherewithals of the reign of terror. It has embedded as advisors, trainers,